Lived next to buried radioactive waste for decades. Tonight, some answers for Bridgeton residents.
We know, based on the data that we have collected, that there is no off-site exposure.
The EPA's plan to clean up a nuclear dump.
Just minutes ago, a public meeting wrapped up discussing the next steps to remediate World War II-era nuclear waste at the Westlake Landfill. Good evening, I'm Mike Bush.
And I'm Ann Allred. Tonight, that radioactive material was dumped there in the 1970s. It is just feet away from the Bridgeton landfill, where an underground fire has been burning for years. Here's our Laura Barczewski. She was at tonight's meeting where no specific timeline was given on when cleanup will begin.
That's right, Mike and Ann. Tonight, the EPA released their findings from their investigation and research at the Westlake Landfill. That was actually just completed. Now they have to move on to the pre-cleanup work, which they don't really know how long that's going to take, and then they can finally move on to the cleanup process. The Environmental Protection Agency says radioactive waste from World War II was dumped at the Westlake landfill between July and October of 1973. At a public meeting, the Department of Energy did claim some ownership of this waste.
We are funding this because we're a potentially responsible party.
The Department of Energy told a group of concerned residents they aren't going to stand in the way of this cleanup.
I want this cleanup to occur just as much as you do. There's a group of folks that need to decide what the proportions are whenever that is determined. Obviously, all the parties are going to sign to that particular agreement.
The EPA says their research shows the radioactive waste is mostly contained to a 200-acre site at the Westlake landfill.
Currently, there is no off-site exposure or health risk to the waste that's contained within the Westlake landfill.
But they couldn't speak to any previous exposure or health risks created by the site. Residents like Dawn Chapman, who have been fighting for the cleanup of this waste, say it's affected the health of their families.
I've watched it happen to my friends. I've watched it happen to my best friend's granddaughter, who it was found in utero. So, I mean, I always knew, of course, that it could hit my family, but it's hard to process.
The EPA investigation shows the material is really deep because waste was dumped on top of it into the 1980s, and they found radioactive material as close to 1 foot from the surface. The EPA will now move on to pre-cleanup work. That will take months, and once that is done, the cleanup will begin. And it will be a lengthy process as described in their document.
The Record of Decision Amendment calls for a partial excavation with off-site disposal of the radioactive waste and the installation of an engineered cover over the landfill.
The EPA website says the next step in the process is the remedial design work, and that is scheduled for July through September of next year. Reporting live from Bridgeton, Laura Barczewski, 5 on your side.
Right.